Hello and welcome back to another video. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Make sure to smash a like and subscribe if you are new. We're trying to hit 500 before the end of the year. Come and join me for my Q&A at 9 p.m. today as well. Today we're talking about things we've learned from Lopetegui'S pre-season so far. And yeah, so far we've gone through Ferencvaros, Dagenham Redbridge and Wolverhampton Wanderers. Obviously beating Dagenham Redbridge, drawing to Ferencvaros and losing to Wolves. Um, and to be honest, I'm not really too bothered about the result. I don't know why this day and age we're in this situation where everyone is being heavily affected more by the result of result of a preseason game rather than the performance of a preseason game. Um, if we take it back to last year, for example, like my major problem with last season's preseason was that Leverkusen game. We got just slaughtered in terms of footballing wise. The same against Rennes as well. We got slaughtered in both games. And then halfway through that Leverkusen game, Moyes brought on an extra defender to then match them up to a three at the back, and that almost summed up his mentality throughout the season. Like, for what you can take from pre-season is you can take performances into account. Performances matter. Results don't. And it sounds dumb, but results don't matter in pre-season. We went unbeaten in preseason in the 2021 season, and it did work out for us because we ended up finishing seventh. But that didn't stop the fact of us needing a striker throughout the halfway through that season. We actually did quite bad last season in preseason last year, but according to some people, that last season was a great season and it was full of nonsense, to be completely honest with you. To be honest with you, this has actually been a good preseason. That's actually been the first preseason where I've actually been quite excited. But let's get into some of the main key points from the Wolves game yesterday and the preseason so far. But it's mainly due to the game yesterday. And big up to everyone that joined the watch along. Obviously, it was a bit of a mess due to the game being delayed a couple of times. But we're going to have the same thing against Crystal Palace in terms of another watch along. And hopefully, this one is on time in terms of kickoff. I'm still quite excited, but I've got positives and negatives to take. But let's get into mainly negatives in terms of the talking points. But these are existing talking points that we know already. First one is Aaron Creswell is washed. And this isn't something that I've learned, but it's hopefully something you guys have learned. Something that you guys were telling me well, we don't need a left back. Well, we've signed Creswell up because we have other positions to focus on, and left back isn't one of them. Left back is one of them. Left back is desperately one of them because if Emerson gets injured, this is done. Because unless we was to sign a Mazzarari or Kyle Walker-Peters, which we're not going to anymore, that would have filled in for two spots. We couldn't have played Creswell. Now, I didn't care about missing out on Juan Miranda as a free agent or whatever because I don't really watch Real Betis, believe it or not. However, Aaron Creswell is very washed, very very washed. The guy was getting 1v1 down targeted a lot against Ferencvaros. They noticed they were getting a lot of joy down there on the right hand side, taking on our left back, and that was the first game of preseason. And yes, they were more sharper, so we take that into account. But throughout this one as well, what Lopetegui originally did was play a 4-3-3/4-2-3-1 and play Cornet on the right and Kudus on the left, which made no sense to me. But when he swapped them round, not to play them in the right position on the wing, but to tell Cornet to play pretty much as a wing back to help Aaron Creswell. Because there was a point where we reverted back to a 5 in that first half because Aaron Creswell was that bad. And because we were getting joy, and because they were getting joy down that right-hand side in the first half. And they were getting joy down in the second half when Pedro Lima came on as well, don't get me wrong, but it also happened in the first half. Aaron Creswell was getting got at. And the guy is washed. The guy should have been let go. I thought this was going to be the chance where, I actually get to see him go. But I didn't get my wish. He signed a new contract for another year, and I'm going to have to put up with all of those performances for another year. So this is why when people ask me, are we getting Europe or not? This is going to be a key reason why we don't get Europe. Because despite playing one game a week, there's going to be a point where Emerson does get injured. And Aaron Creswell will have to fill in. And it's not going to be a good look. Let's be completely honest. But everyone knows my opinion on Aaron Creswell already, but hopefully that's something you guys have learned rather than me, because I already knew this. I'm not even trying to be arrogant. Second point, Czech boys aren't up to it. Now, yesterday was the return of Michail Antonio and the Czech boys, and Michail Antonio didn't have the greatest performance either. But I think we've seen, due to track record especially, that Michail Antonio is way more capable of carrying a West Ham team, or stepping up for a West Ham team, or being more clutch, or coming in with a better performance and stepping up to the big games more likely than Vladimir Sufal and Thomas Souček. Now, don't get me wrong, in the past, both of them have also stepped up with big performances in big games as well. I'm not bypassing that. But to play this style of football, nah, it's not it. Vladimir Sufal is too slow, doesn't know how to control a ball. What I don't like about this football so far that I've seen, and where I will criticize it, is that we're switching the ball a lot of diagonals. None of them are coming off in the two preseason games I've watched. I don't know whether it did come off in a Dagenham and Redbridge game, but that also proves we need midfielders. Like, Souček can ping a ball, but that's pretty much all he can do in terms of passing wise. This comes from a guy whose on the ball ability is apparently underappreciated according to himself, which I didn't get, and you can check out my video from 4 days ago where I talked about that and criticized him. None of that made sense to me, if I'm being completely honest. When it comes to Thomas Souček, obviously playing under pressure, we saw Ward-Prowse, Potts, and Souček in the same midfield. And Freddy Pots and Ward-Prowse were both better than Thomas Souček in possession. Shock. Don't get me wrong, Ward-Prowse doesn't have the physical capabilities, as big up Damien. Damien has also pointed out on my channel before, which I do agree with, that Ward-Prowse doesn't have the physical capabilities to, defend high up, like even deeper or high up the pitch in general, even though he's probably better winning the ball back high up the pitch than he is defending deeper. Thomas Souček, even though he has the physicality, doesn't have the mobility. Always gets done in by number 10s in general in terms of the Premier League. Is meant to be an extra body protection, but doesn't protect anything. Good at blocking the ball, good at heading a ball out. But even in terms of winning duels in the middle of the pitch, it's not like he leaps anymore. He kind of just relies on his height, and other players are leaping to get the ball. When it comes to his passing is very average in terms of just a natural midfielder. And I'm being nice, and that's just in terms of short passing. But this is stuff I've repeated for the past 2 years on this channel, and I'm kind of sick of seeing it. Now, we need a midfielder that can offer you the physical capabilities and also the on-the-ball abilities to play number 8. I don't think Thomas Souček will be up to that. I think he's going to be a big letdown towards the football next season. He's going to be a big reason for why we miss out on certain opportunities to maybe get into Europe or get the edge in certain games. But hopefully when the technical players come back in terms of Paquetá, Jared Bowen, we will see what this team is like. But judging from the fact that he was trying Kudus on the left wing, I have a bad feeling that Kudus is going to play on a lot on the left wing. I would rather Paquetá play deeper, Kudus in the middle, and Bowen on the right. Because even though that is slightly unbalanced, it's better than what we were seeing yesterday. And it's better than playing a Souček there, in my opinion. And we see Kudus on the left is not it. Kudus on the right and Kudus in the middle is absolutely superb. And you get to play his game there. The whole point is him cutting in and running down the outside on the right, and he still gets a goal or two. Obviously, this is not part of the headline thing that I'm talking about, but come on. Like Vladimir Sufal is not good enough, and we'll come on to why we need players later. Speaking of midfielders, though, Freddy Pots. Let's talk about Freddy Pots quickly. This is a positive that I will take from the game. Is the two main standout players was Mohamed Kudus Shock and Freddy Pots. Now, obviously, I still remember the first time we kind of heard that he was on the radar sort of thing to break in through the first team was May. Around when Lopetegui was coming in, he agreed to come in, and he was going to be appointed for after the season and stuff. Freddy Pots and Flynn Downs were the guys that were going to be looked at in pre-season. Now, obviously, Southampton eventually paid the money to get Flynn Downs, so we didn't really get to see him, unfortunately. And he would have been better than Souček and Ward-Prowse throughout that pre-season, even though he's the number 6 and not number 8, he'd still be a better number 8 than them two, in my opinion. Freddy Pots, he can play 6 and number 8, and he may be one of the solutions towards our midfield when Edson Alvarez is not playing. Now, I'm not an academy merchant, but when I know an academy player is good enough, I can spot one, in my opinion, and I think Freddy Pots is one of them. When I first ever watched Freddy Pots in youth games, I didn't think he was all that. Um, but the time has gone on, he's significantly improved. I think the first time I really took him in was last season's preseason. I was actually quite liking the start of last season preseason when we played in Australia, like against Tottenham, an Australian team. Even though I don't really want to play Tottenham in preseason. Um, and Freddy Pots impressed in that game as in those games as well. Now, I think Connor Coventry would have been all right. But right now, I can't lie. I still think Connor Coventry would have been okay, but we move. Um, but with Freddy Potts, so composed on the ball, and this is against the Premier League side. These are the sides you kind of want to see the younger players against. This is why I want to see more of Lewis Orford in that back four. Um, when we were playing the back four throughout that game, and also with Freddie Potts as well, there was kind of like switching. It wasn't like one player receiving the ball, which we've seen throughout the preseason. It's not like an out and out regista sort of thing, a midfielder picking up the ball off the defense. It was a bit of everything when it came to the midfielders, kind of just vibing through. Sometimes it was Suchek or Ward-Prowse picking up the ball from defence, etc. Meaning the midfield is going to be a lot more fluid than you would see under a David Moyes. Now, this is why formation doesn't come into account that much because we played a 4-2-3-1 at times in possession and our possession in that time, and it didn't look like the same 4-2-3-1 where you see from David Moyes' side, where rigid and slow and all of that stuff. And we've got to have balance. And I think Freddie Potts will bring that balance. He can bring that balance in a number 8 or a number 6, in my opinion. Very good at the ball. And I think if he performs the same way against Crystal Palace, then he's not going to be loaned out. And I'll be very upset if he does get loaned out. And since his player of the season season at Wickham, he's been absolutely brilliant. So he's taken that form straight into preseason, trying to impress the first team, and he's done really well, in my opinion. So credit to him, and hopefully he gets included within the first team because I think he deserves it. I think he's taking the chances really well. And yeah, it's kind of a midfielder we needed, just someone that's very composed and good on the ball and just can pass in between the lines and stuff like that. And he's only going to get better. He's 2021. He's only going to get better from here. Kurt Zuma and Naya Ged are done is the next headline, next sort of banner thing that I've put up. Next thing you can take away from yesterday's game. This is mainly to do with Zuma. Aged was a bit. I'm going to get the Aged stuff out of the way. Aged wasn't as bad as Zuma, but none of the centre backs that impressed me apart from Max Kilman yesterday and Casey, even though he didn't play centre back. With Naya Aged, my main problem was it was a bit too rash for the second goal. When we were conceding that I think it was the second goal. Obviously, Zuma was jogging, but Aged was very rash, panicked almost. It's not great with the ball as people think. Now, this is a ball playing side, and under the press, Aged and Mavropanos were probably the worst, and Zuma, but them three were probably the worst under pressure when it comes to playing on the ball. Like Mavropanos will do better in a ball playing side as he will improve as time goes on, and I'm sure him and Kilman will form a good partnership when given more time, but doesn't mean he doesn't have a mistake in him. And Aged is also a man who has a few mistakes. He's not great on the ball. The guy was also doing the thing he did under David Moyes where he was long balling it for the sake of it. I think once they get used to this football a lot more, maybe things will improve, but that's my saying on Aged. When it comes to Kurt Zuma, not two of the goals, but one of the goals was definitely his fault, and that was the second goal once again. Zuma was just jogging. Now, we saw after the Dagenham Redbridge game, I saw in the highlights that Kurt Zuma was coming off with 2 ice packs after playing 45 minutes against Dagenham Redbridge. The guy is completely finished athletically, and he's probably should be our 4th choice centre-back. Now, the problem is, we're not going to sign a centre-back unless they go, because otherwise it'll be a waste of funds and all that. And a waste of wages, and we've got other positions that we do need to prioritise as other voids need to be filled, such as left wing, and we'll get onto it in a minute. But that is that. Like seeing Kurt Zuma like this, he's taken too many injuries, and it's not great to see, to be completely honest. And as much as he's actually not terrible on the ball, it's almost like he's lost everything. Like when you see him on the ball now, he just get rid of the ball a lot more. He's not good under pressure, and you can see if he was to make a mistake, he would be jogging back to try and get back, even though he's a centre back. The guy's going to take a few injuries probably when not playing on the pitch, and I generally think he could retire in about 2-3 years, which is bad. especially for someone like, I think it's still like 29, 30. He should probably be retiring in about 5 or 6 years. But Zuma's done. Again is not good enough for me either. Kilman and Mavropanos are, I'll be watching Mavropanos closely, but I hope that he goes up a level um, in a ball playing side. But Max Kilman looks good, in my opinion. Max Kilman was, to be honest with you, he did give away the ball a couple of times as well, but he was actually probably the one that impressed the most. He's been good this preseason from what I've seen as well. But let's get on to the last point, and this is kind of obvious. We still need players. I think it's blatantly obvious we need a left winger that's right footed, that could cut in, that could also run up players. We need pretty much like a Jared Bowen-esque right footed player that can play on the left. We need a right back. I'm sick of hearing the same thing about Wan-Bissaka and John Duran when it comes to right back and striker, and I don't want to talk about them anymore. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. The more I've uploaded and the more I've streamed, I'm sick of talking about them too. I'm sick of talking about Wan-Bissaka and John Duran. I don't care anymore. I legit don't give a shit. Just move on to other targets. If Aston Villa are going to stand by the 40 million and want to keep a player that is very unhappy and won't lower the asking price, then leave them. Unfortunately, I think we're going to still play mind games with Aston Villa, leave the striker until late, which is going to piss me off. And if that does happen, then I'm going to have to heavily criticize this window because a striker is needed. The amount of chances that we will create, unfortunately, we're going to see us not pretty much score as much, which is a point that James Lawrence Alcott actually raised when talking about Lopetegui'S side as the striker situation and the fact that Wolves, even under Lopetegui, were creating a lot of chances but not finishing them. We need a striker. We need an Ivan Toney. If we had an Ivan Toney in this side, I believe we get Europe, funny enough. But that's mainly because we outscore teams, not because we are defending really well and we have the midfielders to, boss teams off the pitch and stuff. Because that ain't going to happen with this midfield. Unless we play Paquetá and Kudus and we just go all out attack. And even that is a bit risky. And that would be a bit of a burden for, our defenders and stuff. But obviously we need players. We need a striker. But we're unfortunately still going to play games with Aston Villa. I'm going to wait until maybe the last few weeks just so they drop their asking price, but that's not a good game to play. Go and talk with other strikers. Go and scout. We've got scouts. Why aren't we scouting? I'm starting to get a little bit more frustrated, to say the least. I'm not particularly asked. I'm not asked at all. With right back, even if it's Wan-Bissaka, go just get him for God's sakes. And if not, please just go for alternatives. I'm tired of it. We need a right back. We need someone that can attack and defend. I'm fucking sick of it. But listen, that is it from me. I'm a little bit frustrated, but there are positives to take from the game. My positivity mainly comes from the fact that the coaching is going to get more out of the players. Hopefully, we don't see none of that three at the back stuff that we saw. Because when we went to three at the back, it actually hindered a lot of the play that we were doing. Someone like a Lewis Orford, for example, benefited more when a four at the back was happening, and I have a feeling he will go out on loan, and apparently he's going to sign a new contract. Freddy Pots played well. George Earthy made us so much more comfortable in the ball as he came on, and we played the 4-2-3-1 again. Maybe George Earthy can play a part because he's that good on the ball, and it's just a matter of time whether he'll apply himself or not. Caelan Casey was also a standout as well. He played right back, and he's a centre back, but he was actually that good on the ball at right back that he made Soufal look like shit. I feel sorry for Kadua because as much as the third goal is his fault, he's not naturally a defender. But he was being pinned back in the right wing back position quite a lot. I do feel sorry for him, and that's obviously not his future to play right wing back. And don't get me wrong, he wasn't even that bad there, just in general in possession and running up and down and stuff. But yeah, that's not his position. I think we know that he's just there to fill almost the quota of the fact that we don't have the personnel. But that's why we need positions. That's why we need players in positions for pre-season. But that is it from me. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to subscribe to your social medias are in the description if you want to follow me, and an email for the inquiries. And check out the Q&A at 9 p.m. Be there so you can ask me any question you want. And I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.